Let's talk about warming up before we go on and sketch as designers. Now, it's important as a designer when you come to sketch, particularly if you've not sketched in a long time, to warm up, just as an athlete would do before a race or a game. And we might as well warm up by doing some exercises based around the Sketchers toolkit. There's not much to the toolkit, and for this lesson I'm going to show you all with a pencil. This is all we really need. But the toolkit is as follows. Okay? What you need as a designer is you need to be able to draw light lines. That's number one. Okay? Light lines. You also need to be able to draw heavy lines. And from time to time, just to make your sketch legible, you sometimes have to draw what I'll call fat lines. Other things you'll need to do, well actually before we talk about that, most of your sketching is done with light lines. I would say the next chunk of your sketching is done with heavy lines, and finally only a small number of aesthetic improvements are made to sketches by using fat lines. So by and large, we want to be focusing on our ability to draw light lines. And not only to draw lines that are light, but lines that are brave. So we don't want to be drawing lines like Dr. Seuss might draw them. We want them to be brave strokes from A to B. Other things in the designer's toolkit is a concept of shade. Now, we can do this with 3 gradations or 5 gradations, but let's just stick with 3 just now, okay? This is an idea of shade. Shade is merely a progression from light to dark, and we do this with our pencil, starting off nice and light and getting progressively darker as we move towards the end. I've got 2 scales drawn here. I've got a discontinuous scale, and this is the kind of shading that would be picked up on an object whose faces are discontinuous, such as a cube. And I've got continuous shading in this little swatch here, which would be picked up by something smooth like a ball, something round like a cylinder. And the concept goes that we go from light at one end to dark at the other, simply by varying the pressure or the angle of our pencil. So I've put in a light shading there. I'm then going to go for the medium one again. Now you'll notice in the discontinuous shading one which I'm working on just now, there is no blending between the various degrees of darkness. So I'm overworking the previous layer of pencil that I put down, and now I've changed angle to ensure that things get even darker. So 3 types of shade, 1, 2, 3, light, medium and dark. On the continuous shading scale, start off by doing the whole lot of it in a light tone, and then we start to increase our pencil weight, starting a little bit further in every time. Now notice how far back I'm holding the pencil, and as I want to get darker, I come nearer the tip of it. You'll notice that because I'm revisiting the darkest areas of the paper over and over, until we get super dark in there. Now that's all been done with basically an HB pencil, a middle of the line pencil, neither too dark or too light. There are other pencils that you can play with. You can play with B pencils up in this range, or H pencils down in this range to get an even larger gradation of shade. Now, so that's us. We've got line and we've got shade. And that's going to be good enough for us just now, but we need some warm-up exercises for this. Let's get another piece of paper. This is our warm-up. So we've been away from design sketching for a while. We sit down at desk and we've got to try and loosen up. All of this is off camera, but what you won't see is that I'm drawing with my whole arm. It's not just my hands or my fingers that are moving, it's my whole arm that's moving. So first of all, we're going to warm up with our light lines. I'm going to draw two dots like this and put a brave line between them. Now by a brave line, I mean a line that goes from A to B, from dot 1 to dot 2, nice and light. What I don't want is a line that sort of wanders its way over. And I also don't want a line which takes stepping stones like that. Let's try and be brave, and let's put our lines right across. Dot 1, dot 2, straight across. Notice that I've turned the paper, okay? You will find that you have an angle of the paper that you prefer the most. So by all means, rotate the page. The goal here is to be as brave as we can. Let's practice. That's our light lines. Let's practice the same thing again, but with dark lines, or heavy. It's even possible, it's a nice exercise to try and go over the light lines that you've already done and thicken them up. And of course, the other line type that we mentioned was the fat line, which is where we stroke over 2 or 3 times just to make it nice and chunky. Next exercise I'd like to try and do is put in 3 dots and join them with a graceful curve. And try and put your dots in so that you're drawing concave and convex curves. Try all kinds of different sizes, different directions. Now, why bother putting the dots in? Well, the dots is for accuracy, because you're also warming up your ability to be accurate. And then it's worth practicing a continuous shading band, but we draw in a rectangle, starting from very light, and heavier and heavier. Now when you start to shade, you start to use more of the hand and less of the arm. Or I do anyway. You'll find your own style. What we're trying to do here is to create a gradation of shading from the very light to the very dark. Warm up by drawing ellipses, circles and egg shapes and ovals and ellipses, all different sizes. And then once you've covered a section of your page in circles, look at the little gaps. Let's go in there and let's shade them in. Now this kind of sketching is kind of inconsequential. We're not trying to depict anything from real life. We're not trying to put a design down in paper. We're simply warming up. We're stretching. Occasionally, when we're doing these little warm-up exercises, we start to find shapes that we like, that we remember, and we use in future designs. Once you've got your mess like this, it's always a good idea to try and find things, maybe lines in there that you like. Go over them again. See what comes out the mess. And our final warm-up exercise is squares. Using light lines. Remember, most of your drawing will be done with light construction lines. Squares and rectangles. Overlap them. Try and keep them all pointing in the same direction. And again, where you see little gaps, let's practice our shading. Let's find some interesting shapes and interesting proportions in amongst the mix, perhaps even darken them up. Because the chance, so much of design comes about from happy accidents. In fact, there's many creative design techniques and design sketching techniques where the designer has engineered a kind of fake scenario so that happy accidents do emerge, and this is one such technique. We're just drawing sort of random shapes and allowing at least the possibility of a nice happy accident to come out of the jumble. Now you'll notice when I'm drawing squares then, we'll talk about this in another video, you'll notice that I'm drawing, let's find a clear bit of paper, just go up the top. You'll notice when I'm drawing squares, I tend to draw the four sides separately, like that. What I don't do is I don't tend to do it in one journey, like that. That doesn't give as good a square. I tend to draw like that with plenty of overlap in them as well. So that's a useful warm-up exercise, practicing our light lines dot to dot and our heavy lines and our fat lines dot to dot, using the 3-dot method to draw curves, a gradiated shading, smoothly going from light to dark, ellipsis and shading, squares and shading.